All right, everybody, listen up because what I witnessed on SportsCenter last night is going to completely blow your mind about where this Knicks roster is heading. And I'm not talking about some surface-level free agency analysis here. This is organizational chess at the highest level. The kind of strategic roster construction that separates championship contenders from teams that just talk about championships. So I'm watching this deep dive segment where they're breaking down Malcolm Brogdon's comments and Leon Rose's summer move. And when all the pieces started connecting, I literally had to pause and call my buddy because the implications are absolutely staggering for New York's title chances. Let me break down what really went down during this SportsCenter coverage, because the casual Knicks sign some veterans narrative completely misses the psychological warfare and strategic brilliance happening behind the scene. The panel was going through Brogdon's recent comments about why he chose New York, and what emerged wasn't just another free agent signing story. This was a complete revelation about how elite organizations build championship rosters in the modern NBA. Here's what James Edwards reported during the broadcast that had the entire studio buzzing. Brogdon said he had several opportunities this summer, but wanted to play for New York, and he turned down opportunities earlier in the offseason specifically to try to get to the Knicks. Now think about what that means for a second. This is a player who averaged 12.7 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 4.1 assists while shooting 43% from the field and 40% on corner threes. Teams like Denver, Miami, and multiple other contenders would have loved to add him to their roster. But Brogdon wanted New York specifically, even though the Knicks didn't technically have an open roster spot when he committed. The SportsCenter crew was emphasizing how significant this is from a cultural standpoint. When players of Brogdon's caliber are turning down guaranteed roster spots on other teams just for the chance to compete for a spot in New York, that tells you everything about what's happening inside that organization. This isn't about money. He's on a minimum deal. This isn't about playing time guarantees. He's on an Exhibit 9 contract that could theoretically get waived. This is about a player looking at the Knicks championship window and saying, I want to be part of that, whatever it takes. But here's where Brogdon's comments got really revealing, and the broadcast spent significant time analyzing the psychology behind his decision. He said, going into my 10th year, I wanted to be in a good organization that's competing and trying to win a championship. I had that in Milwaukee, Boston, and here I think it's a real shot. I come here with the exact expectation that I'm going to make the team. I feel what I bring to the table and have to offer. I can help this team. The panel was breaking down each phrase, because when you've got a veteran who's won in Milwaukee and came close in Boston making those comparisons to New York, that's not just optimism, that's legitimate championship conviction. The fit from a basketball perspective is what had the SportsCenter analysts most excited, and they dove deep into the tactical advantages Brogdon brings. Mike Brown's system wants another lead guard who can handle the ball so Jalen Brunson doesn't have to dominate possession on every single possession. But more importantly, it allows Brown to use Brunson in off-ball sets, which is where Brunson was so effective in Dallas playing alongside Luka Doncic. The broadcast showed side-by-side clips of Brunson's movement patterns with Dallas versus his isolation-heavy role under Thibodeau, and the difference was stark. Here's where the strategic brilliance becomes obvious, and the panel did an excellent job explaining this. Brogdon is a solid enough defender that he can actually play alongside Brunson in crucial moments, which means for the first time in his entire Knicks tenure, Brunson won't necessarily be the only ball handler on the floor. That changes everything about how defenses have to prepare, how the offense can flow, and how sustainable Brunson's production can be over 82 games and a playoff run. The playoff experience factor became a major talking point during the broadcast, and this is where Brogdon's resume becomes really impressive. Through 43 playoff games in his career, he's averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 3.7 assists, while shooting 42% from the field and 38% from three. But the SportsCenter crew highlighted specific playoff runs that show his championship pedigree. In Boston, He played 19 playoff games as the Celtics made it to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final, averaging 12 points per game on solid efficiency. This is a battle-tested veteran who's proven he can produce when the stakes are highest. Tommy Beer's statistical breakdown became the centerpiece of the segment's tactical analysis, and these numbers are absolutely wild. In Brogdon's lone season with Boston, he averaged 11.33 drives per game, second among all bench players. The following year in Portland, he increased that to 11.7 drives in just 27 minutes per night. The panel was emphasizing how perfectly this fits what Mike Brown wants to do offensively: constant penetration, creating advantages for shooters on the perimeter. But here's the stat that really had everyone's attention. As a ball handler in pick-and-roll situations, Brogdon averaged 1.01 points per possession in Boston, which is the exact same efficiency as Jalen Brunson. Think about what that means for roster construction. You're getting a player who can literally replicate your star's production in specific actions, which means the offense doesn't have to dramatically change when Brunson sits. That's championship-level depth that you simply cannot buy or manufacture through development. The three-point shooting profile is another dimension that makes this fit so perfect, and the broadcast showed footage highlighting Brogdon's range and versatility from beyond the arc. He shot a career-high 44.4% from downtown in the 2022-23 season, then followed that up with 41% the next year. Last season saw a dip, but the SportsCenter analysts were explaining how that's almost certainly a function of the situation in Washington rather than declining ability. When you're on a young, rebuilding team where you're getting too much defensive attention and the offensive system isn't designed to maximize your strength, efficiency suffers. Beer's research on Brogdon's catch-and-shoot numbers was absolutely eye-opening. During his last relatively healthy season in 2023-24, Brogdon led the entire league in catch-and-shoot three-point percentage, converting 59 of his 114 attempts for an absurd 51.8%. The panel was practically salivating over those numbers, especially considering how many of those attempts will come from the corner in Brown's system, and Brogdon shot 40% from the corners last year specifically. Then the conversation shifted to the roster management implications, and this is where the SportsCenter analysis got really interesting from a front office strategy perspective. The broadcast made it clear that the Knicks are absolutely going to have to make a trade to keep Brogdon. There's no way around it. They're either trading Pacomi Dadiet or Tyler Kolek, most likely to Brooklyn since the Nets have the roster flexibility and would probably take a protected second-round pick for essentially a free young prospect. The panel was debating which player gets moved, and their analysis was nuanced. Dadiet has more trade value because he's younger and more raw, with higher theoretical upside. Kolek was a Thibodeau guy, and with Thibodeau gone, there's less organizational attachment. But Dadiet might actually be more useful to the Knicks long-term because of his size, defensive potential, and shooting mechanics. The broadcast consensus seemed to be leaning toward Dadiet getting traded simply because he'd fetch more value, even though keeping him might make more basketball sense. But here's the key point the SportsCenter crew kept hammering home. When you're trying to win a championship right now, with Jalen Brunson at 29 years old in his prime, you make these moves. You trade the unproven rookie for the proven playoff performer. It's not even a difficult decision when you frame it that way, and Leon Rose has made it clear the full focus is on winning a championship this season. Jordan Clarkson became the next major talking point, and the energy in the studio shifted when they started discussing what he brings to this roster. The broadcast showed clips of Clarkson talking about why he chose New York, and his comments were absolutely perfect for what this team needs. He said watching Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs made him want to come to New York. And when the opportunity presented itself, he was full go with no hesitation. The panel was emphasizing Clarkson's scoring mentality and how that's exactly what the Knicks lacked last season. He averaged 16 points per game in Utah on 41% shooting and 36% from three, but more importantly, he's got that instant offense mentality where he's not afraid to take big shots in big moments. The SportsCenter crew compared him to Jamal Crawford and J.R. Smith, guys who can completely change the energy and momentum of a game with their shot-making ability. Clarkson's playoff numbers with Utah were particularly impressive, and the broadcast highlighted his 17.3 points per game average over 24 playoff games, shooting 45% from the field and an insane 94.4% from the free throw line. This is a guy who's proven he can score efficiently in the postseason, and now he's joining a team where he won't have to carry the primary scoring load. The panel was speculating about what Clarkson could do as a sixth man on a legitimate contender, and the possibilities are really exciting. What really emerged from the entire SportsCenter segment was this sense that Leon Rose absolutely cooked this offseason in ways that aren't immediately obvious. First signing Clarkson, then adding Gershon Yabusele to make the depth look unreal, then Landry Shamet, and finally, Malcolm Brogdon. Each move individually looks solid, but when you see how all the pieces fit together within Mike Brown's system, it's actually kind of brilliant roster construction. The depth chart analysis the broadcast showed was absolutely staggering. When you're looking at guards like Brunson, Clarkson, Brogdon, McBride, and potentially Shamet all competing for minutes, that's legitimate 8-deep guard rotation. The panel kept emphasizing how dramatically different this is from last season, when any injury to Brunson or Reeves created massive problems for the entire offensive structure. That's what went down on SportsCenter last night, and honestly, the more I think about these moves, the more convinced I become that the Knicks might actually have the best championship odds in the Eastern Conference. This isn't just hope or hype. This is legitimate strategic roster construction that addresses every weakness from last season while maximizing their championship window. Leon Rose confirmed exactly what this organization is about, and the whole league better take notice.